Hi, this is Kurt with Friendly DevOps. Now, I actually didn't want to do this video. I was hoping that somebody in the gaming space that usually talks about these things would bring it up. But after 3 weeks, unfortunately, I guess I'm the only one who either made this observation or cares enough to comment on it. The reviews of the ROG Xbox Ally X here on YouTube range anywhere from it's a great device to it's a total scam. And only from a question posed to Digital Foundry does the topic I want to discuss ever get hinted at. But the best way for me to illustrate my concern is to compare the ROG Xbox Ally X with the Switch 2. Clearly, the ROG Xbox Ally X is more powerful than the Switch 2, but that doesn't actually tell the whole story. Based on the myriad of videos for both devices, I was able to determine by roughly how much, and the differences are especially worth noting when the Xbox Ally X, what I'll be referring to from now on, is more than twice the price of the Switch 2. With the multiple power modes that both the Xbox Ally X and the Switch 2 have, I will be limiting my comparison to the 35 watt mode on the Xbox Ally X and the dock mode on the Switch 2. These modes are comparable because both these modes require the device be plugged into the outlet in order to be achieved, and these are also the highest output either device is able to attain. In terms of raw rasterization, the Xbox Ally X is more than twice as powerful as the Switch 2. I used the El Analista de Bits channel's video ROG Xbox Ally X vs Switch 2 full comparisons footage of Hollow Knight Silk Song to demonstrate this. The Switch 2 is able to produce either 120 frames per second at 1080p or 60 frames per second at 2160p, while the Xbox Ally X is able to do over 120 frames per second at 2160p. Clear enough, except both devices have video cards from different manufacturers, and there are significant benefits that NVIDIA GPUs have over AMD, and this is where the comparison for the Xbox Ally X start to lean in favor of the Switch 2. The first dent in the Xbox Ally X is the fact that the Switch 2 has access to DLSS. Compared to FSR3 and XeSS upscaling solutions available to the Xbox Ally X, DLSS is less computationally intense and has a better final image quality. When comparing Cyberpunk 2077 between the two devices, we see the Switch 2 with better image quality demonstrated again in the El Analista de Bits video. Take note that the 80 frames per second in the caption for Xbox Ally X is with frame gen on. On the Xbox Ally X with Steam Deck presets, the output set to 1080p with XeSS balance mode, the game renders at 720p and provides frame rates between 45 to 55 frames per second in normal conditions with frame gen off. The Switch 2 using DLSS renders the game at 720p with an output of 1080p as determined by Digital Foundry. The frame rate is a steady 30 frames per second in most instances, with drops as low as 25 frames per second in computationally heavy moments. But since I don't have the video of the Xbox Ally X in similar situations, I will only be using 29 as the lowest Switch 2 frames per second for this comparison. This drops the performance difference between the Xbox Ally X and the Switch 2 from double the performance to about 50 to 80% higher frame rates, and I must highlight that this is achieved with lower image quality. If this was all that separated these two devices, I wouldn't have cared enough to even acknowledge the differences. But with this final comparison, I felt it was a complete dereliction on the part of the professional reviewers that the following observation I'm about to make was never mentioned. And this is a complete tanking of performance when running ray trace titles. Comparing the performance of Star Wars Outlaws on the two devices, from the analysis of Digital Foundry, the Switch 2 renders the game at 720p with an output of 1440p and maintains a consistent frame rate of 30 frames per second in most conditions. In this video by Deck Wizard, the Xbox Ally X, by contrast, when setting FSR to performance with an output of 1080p, renders the game at 540p and has a frame rate that fluctuates from 29 to 35 frames per second, mostly staying in the low 30s. Again, I must highlight this is also with a lower quality image. This is a complete reversal of the difference in performance than what we saw for the performance of Cyberpunk 2077. While the Ryzen Z2 Extreme found in the Xbox Ally X contains ray tracing cores, it has been demonstrated that the NVIDIA RT cores are significantly more efficient. Based on the rumors confirmed by the shots of the Switch 2 GPU, the T239 has 75% of the cores found in the RTX 2050, which contain 32 RT cores. This would possibly leave the Switch 2 with 24 RT cores, which is 8 more than the 16 found in the Ryzen Z2 Extreme. Even accounting for the lower TDP of the Switch 2, the larger number and greater efficiency ray tracing cores would easily account for the difference in performance seen between the two devices. To further illustrate the point about the differences in RT cores, I'm going to play for you the findings of the channel VecTech Games when comparing the 7900 XT with the RTX 4070.
Our NVIDIA card had half of the ray tracing cores as the AMD card, yet had almost double the performance. In the AMD benchmark, it's getting nearly double the frame rate without any ray tracing. But when ray tracing is turned on, it's very similar to the NVIDIA card.
This is the issue I have with the reviews of the Xbox Ally X. It is totally understandable that for many potential customers of the Xbox Ally X, their main concern would be on how it performs on currently released titles. Some might characterize this as current gen. But the generation isn't over, and the fact that all three major console manufacturers and all their current variants are designed with ray tracing in mind doesn't bode well for the Xbox Ally X. This wouldn't be an issue in my opinion if the device in question was not only $1,000, but the fact that it trades blows with another portable device that is less than half the price. This takes me back to the question that I alluded to earlier that was posed to Digital Foundry on the video ROG Xbox Ally X. How future-proof is it? And what about PC Game Pass value? The most succinct response was the answer made by Alex Battaglia.
Regarding the situation of the current highest end ROG Ally X, Xbox, oh my god, this name. Regarding that thing, I feel like at the moment I wouldn't be too worried about the scaling for all games. I think a lot of games are targeting Series S as a base minimum, right. And I feel like this product allows for a 30 FPS experience at the worst with Series S like quality, and I feel like that is a reasonable expectation for a handheld.
Which for me is interesting because it echoes a sentiment by Eoin O'Grady, technical director at Black Shamrock. When speaking about the Switch 2, he stated, "Since most games tend to be more GPU bound than CPU bound when well optimized, the impact of this difference largely depends on the specific game and its target frame rate. Any game shipping at 60 frames per second on Series S should easily port to the Switch 2. Likewise, a 30 frames per second Series S game that's GPU bound should also port well. Games with complex physics, animation, and other CPU intensive elements might incur additional challenges in reaching 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second or require extra optimization during porting." Obviously, both these devices are catering to different audiences, so I'm not advocating that the potential audience for Xbox Ally X consider a Switch 2 instead. My point is, with the fact that the most popular devices of this generation are all fully capable of running ray tracing games, increasing the likelihood that more games will have it implemented by default, what is the actual value proposition of the Xbox Ally X at $1,000? Especially when in this one area it's comparable to the weakest device on the market. Anyway, I said all that I feel there is to say on my part about this subject. I doubt I will be making videos about similar topics in the near future, but if you enjoyed my rant, please like and subscribe to the channel, leave your thoughts down below, and until the next time, take care.